Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to make this very, very conversational so that we'll just all learn together. I have a slide. Do you want me to start sharing the slide now or wait 4 minutes from now?
Okay, for 3 minutes. Maybe just chat
Okay.
first and know what needs are in the room.
Right.
Um,
So what are your experience? What kind of experience have you had with going for interviews?
so like me, let me start sharing so that I can meet myself and others can talk.
Okay.
Personally, I would say when I first came to Australia or when I started looking for jobs in Australia, I had this. I think interviews are easier back home. I think so.
You think so?
Yes, they're easier back home
Okay. Why do you
because
think so?
here in Australia there's a structure. If you don't meet that structure, you are struck out.
What do you mean by structure?
So back home, when you go for interview, it's time to talk. Abi, Australia, they want you to
Yes.
go straight to the point because they have what they call the
Format.
star technique. Yeah, star format.
Hmm.
So
Okay, so that's the structure you're saying.
that's it. So like currently, I'm about to do a recruitment activity, and so I was going through my organization's policy and how they give marks to candidates. So usually, they will grade candidates and come and get the total, and then the person with the highest mark or whatever. I discovered that all the boxes you need to tick is
Hmm.
just based on how well somebody aligned their answers with that star technique.
Hmm.
So no matter what you have to say, you need to put it in the format of the star technique. If you don't, they're not interested in what you. In fact, as you start, if you didn't start with that situational
Right.
scenario, you are struck
Hmm.
out. Whereas back home, I remember then you can be allowed to talk. But then
Hmm.
I also want to say that knowing the star technique eventually, I now discovered that it is easier to use the star technique than what we used to use back home.
Exactly.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. I said it was easier back home because back home we didn't really have a rigid um, structure to answer interview questions. It was based on.
There's also something that happens back home, which is most interviews, before you take the interviews, you'd have gone through an exam.
Okay.
Like the exam kind of screens you out.
Out, yeah, to reduce.
Outside Nigeria, most people don't do that. Some companies still do that outside Nigeria, but most companies now, when you apply, they call you, is all talk till the end. But in Nigeria, no matter the role you want to do, they will. So the screening is actually a little bit different. But I feel like that style you're talking about is something that if somebody even uses in Nigeria, they stand out.
Yes, that's true. But then what I'm trying to say is that because they put it as a regimental system, it's like if
Yes.
I don't meet it, I've failed. Whereas in Nigeria, even if you don't meet it, so long as you talk, you've
Nigeria
gotten.
is two ways. Is who you know and how you answer your
Let's
question.
not go
So,
down that rabbit hole. Let's.
right. So when it comes to how you answer your question,
Hmm.
that format is something that a good recruiter is actually looking out for. But yes, I agree with you that in Australia is the norm, as in that is all they are looking out for. But in Nigeria, yes, they may not really look out for that. But if you know that there's a format like this and you're following that format, it's going to really help you to stand
Yes,
out because you answer the question in a way that they want you to, in how the recruiters want to hear,
it will make
exactly the way the
sense.
recruiters want to hear.
Exactly.
Yes.
Actually, I've taught a lot of people this start thing back home, and it's made their interview like a. So yeah, star is
Exactly.
actually the best. Just like you
Yes.
said, in Nigeria is who you who you know. Most times before you go for a job, they've already approved you for the job. So over
Yes.
to the
They
whole
already know who
house,
they want
please.
to
Other
see.
people should share their experience too.
So who else has any experience with
Blessing, you
interviews?
did interview now. Share with us. You are there. You are keeping quiet. How
Well,
did
me,
you?
I can share my experience though, if nobody else wants to talk. I'm somebody that when I hear the word interview, no, whether it's job interview or anyone, I'm always very nervous. I don't like it.
Mm.
Yes, in fact, I had to pray that thing away. It makes me, feel very, very uncomfortable because I feel like interviews are very subjective.
Mm.
You're in the hands of someone, literally. And depending on their mood, some people wake up on a very good side, and then you go there, they are just happy with you, whether you say the right things or not.
Mm.
Whereas some people, if they
And
wake up on the
and
bad
there's also a
side,
time frame added to it. So
yeah, so
so
interviews are very, very subjective. So there's something I
mm,
got to learn about interviews. I got to learn that as you're nervous, and then that's because I also started interviewing people. That's
mm,
when I got to know that this nervousness that is coming from me is both ways. They don't know you that is coming for the interview. So the person
mm,
interviewing you too is nervous. The only difference is that person is not looking for it, is trying to hire the best role. And they are
mm,
nervous because if they get it wrong, the organization may come for them down the line. So they want to make sure that they are able to catch all the red flags. So while as they are talking to you sometimes, because they are human beings and they may not be able to catch it all, they may end up going employing the wrong person. The person comes in, and the hiring process is expensive. So if you interview someone and you have to replace that person in 2 months, you cost the organization a lot of money.
mm,
So they are also trying to be very careful. And then another thing again, I found out that I don't have to be nervous because as I'm going for that interview, I'm also supposed to be interviewing them as well. So it's not about me getting a job. I've seen people that got jobs, they got into the environment and they resigned within 1 week. I've also seen people that got into jobs very healthy. Few weeks into the job, they came down with a stroke. I've seen people that got into job and they just got depressed because the environment is toxic. So when you're going for interview, it's two ways. When I realized this, it helped to really reduce the nervousness. Yes, it's good for us to get a job, but remember that you also have to be interviewing those people as well. Is this the right fit for me? As they are looking at you and thinking, is she the right fit for us? You too should be asking yourself, is this the right fit for me? So interview should be looked at as if it's a very serious thing, just like when you want to date someone, because you don't want, when all the red flags are there, you don't want to walk into that relationship because you know down the line it's going to hurt you. Even though we know that when it comes to job, yes, you go in there, you'll be making good money. You also want to evaluate so many things. Is this going to be taking so much of my time from my family? The environment wise, how toxic are these people? So many things are involved. There are some jobs some people go to and they don't even have time for themselves at all again because they are working back to back. They are traveling all over the places. There's an interview that I did one time and they moved me to the last stage. I was just praying. I really, really wanted to go into that, as in get that job, because I felt like this is just the best job for me. They will give you everything down to the latest iPhone. I was just praying that I want this job. Then what happened? They ended up giving the job. Were two people that made it to the final stage. They gave it to the other lady. They said because she had more financial experience than me, that I didn't have much because she was actually coming from a bank. And me, I didn't have any bank experience on my CV. So that's how I cried. Meanwhile, I prayed and prayed and prayed that God, I really want this job. God, please make this thing happen for me. Then they told me, oh, sorry, we are so sorry. This was a very difficult decision for us, but we had to move on with the other candidates. I was so broken. But do you know what? The person they picked, I know her personally. She's someone I know personally because a friend recommended 3 of us for the job. And me and her only made it to the last phase. The other guy got kicked off from the beginning. So this lady, I know her. And 2 months into the job, I just called her to ask her about something and she told me she's not in that company anymore. I didn't even call her to ask her about the company anyway, it's just something else, because I know her. And she said that anyway, she just wants to let me know she's not in that job anymore. I said, why? She said, because those people were, the environment was too toxic for her. It got to a point in the morning before she comes in, her heart is pounding. And because her boss that man was very wicked. And he's this kind of person that I don't even know how to describe it, but let me just cut it short. She said she came one day, she sat down and she wrote a very long letter to him and she resigned. And the letter was very bad because she had to let him know how toxic he is and she should not do that to another person. And I was like, my God, see what God saved me from. And I was so bent on getting that job and God did not let it happen. So now I go into interviews with the mind of, I'm not nervous anymore. As you are asking me questions, I'm also assessing you guys. Are you the right fit for me? Because I have to protect my mental health. I have to protect my physical health. I have to make sure that at least this is in line with what God wants for my life, and not something that is going to come and remove me from God or remove me from my family, and I will not have time for anybody again.
So
The same
Anne,
thing.
let me
Yes,
just cut you a bit there. So
right.
if I'm hearing you right, it's that place where you're not so desperate that you forget that, yes, in spite of needing a job, you need to get a job where you will thrive and not survive.
Yes, and also why I'm doing this preamble is because a lot of people go for interviews and they are very nervous. So interviews should be looked at two ways. While they are interviewing you, trying to get the best candidates, you should also put all your antennas on, trying to also know if they are a good fit for you. And when you have that mentality, you go into that interview very, very confident because you're not desperate. And don't try to be desperate for any position, because when you are desperate, they sense that desperation and they use it against you. So while you're preparing for interview, do a lot of things, and I'll soon start sharing my slides, but I just wanted to do this preamble because me personally, that used to be my experience with interviews. I used to be very nervous. I used to not like it because I used to feel like, I'll go there now, they'll turn me down. And I don't like rejection. So what, this what, so I used to go for interviews with that mind, but now my mind have changed because I feel like if this is really what God wants for me, he will make it happen. And just like I said, interviews are very subjective. It depends on who is talking to you. You will, the same person somebody has been turned down from an interview just because of her accent. And this person is very good, but the stupid man was just like, and I'm sorry for saying that, but that's not a reason to turn someone down when you know they are very good. So that already tells you that if this lady goes into that job, they'll frustrate her. So you have to guide everything because you don't want to go into an environment because you are desperate and then you start feeling stuck. It should be something that you should be happy about. You wake up in the morning, you are so happy that you're going to work, you see your co-workers, you're happy. And there are a lot of companies like that. There are so many companies that people are working in and they are very happy. Now, the thing again I want to say is some companies, you will see a company that is very good, but the manager is bad. But because you're going to be sticking to that manager kind of represents the company. So you have to be assessing the team. Like this lady that I told you resigned from that bank job. She is the manager that was bad. Some other people in the company had other good reports about the company. But some of these companies are such that your manager is the one that kind of decides how you grow, how you move around. So you can't really just decide so many things yourself. It gets to a point where you can do that, but if you're just coming into the organization, at least the first few months, you can't move around much. Your manager is the one that can decide your fate, literally, the first few months. So imagine you go to that kind of place and your manager is that kind of person, and you'll be feeling so stuck and so frustrated. So I've just given all this preamble, so just to help you all to realize that interview is not the word I want to use is not something that you should look at. Don't go into an interview very desperate. Go in very confident.
But what
because
if
you
you're
have
actually
something.
desperate, Anne?
Now, when you are desperate, that's the thing. Because I know most of us are desperate because we need the job, including me.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is, don't show it. When you show it, they'll use it against you. Don't let them see that desperation. When the confidence and the energy, the confidence, when you are very confident, it exudes this energy that they will not use to take you for granted. But when you are very desperate, these people will know that this person is desperate and they'll be using you like a toy. So you want to try as much as possible to cover up that desperation. And again, when you are not desperate, even though you are desperate, because including me, like I said, if I'm looking for a job now too, I will be desperate because I really want that job and I want a change of environment. But I'll walk into that interview and I would not want to show that desperation. Okay, let me use an example. If you are dating someone for the first time and you go on the date and you want to marry this guy, on that first date, will you now be doing like, oh, this is you I want to marry? You want to also, I don't know, this thing I don't know.
Shakara,
you know how say,
you have to do shakara.
Well, exactly. You want to show that, well, this is me. I'm off. I have some things to offer. So even though you deep down in your mind, you're like, select me or choose me, or it's me I want, it's you I want, that kind of thing. You don't want to really put that at the front of your you don't want it to be so glaring, so that desperation will not come against you down the line. Because if you do that, you will not be able to catch the red flags. And let's just be very honest. Yes, we all want to get that good job that will give us good money because life is really hard. But the truth is, when you see some environments, like this one I told you about somebody, this person that had a stroke is a 20-something-year-old guy. Yes, and this is not them say he had a stroke after he resumed this job because the job was so hectic, stressful. He wasn't resting, he wasn't sleeping. And that's how one day, boom, they rushed him to the ER. They say he had a partial stroke, 20-something years old. So we also have to be very, very careful about some of these things. Although I know the preamble is kind of going another direction now, but what I'm just trying to say is build your confidence. Try as much as possible to build your confidence. So let your confidence come from within. That is going to really help you to exude that energy. Now, when you are going for interview, there are some things that they want to see. The energy, most people that I have interviewed and the people that I usually recommend are people that exhibit this energy that I'm talking about. And the energy comes from confidence, even if they don't even know what they are asking them. If you're sitting down there and you cannot even express yourself, or you cannot really communicate some things from your head because you're super nervous, and also how to reduce that nervousness is that confidence. The confidence will help you to exude a lot of energy. That energy is what recruiters really want to see. It's very, very, very important, as in for you to go into interview and be very confident. So a good way to look at it is, I'm here, I have a lot to offer. So you just walk from there and you see the nervousness disappearing, because the other person is a human being too. And the person is assessing you. So let's start going through this because of our time. So this is the content of what I put together, preparing for interviews, before your interviews, during your interviews, and after your interviews. So when you're preparing for interviews, the first thing is know your brand. Basically, know your brand is, who are you? What do you have to offer? What are the skills that will sell for you? So if you apply to become a teacher in a school, there will be some unique things about you, and you want to highlight those things when highlight those things about you and try to, in your interview, be pushing it out. And sometimes you can also get some of these clues about yourself from other people. Go on LinkedIn, research people that have the same kind of jobs that you have or you're looking for. Read their bios. That will give you an idea to then sit down and reflect and ask yourself, all these things that I'm seeing, which one of these things really do I have? And can I, there are some teachers that when you go into their class, you will never sleep. And there are some teachers that when you go into their class, within 5 minutes, you are sleeping already because their class is very boring. There's something unique about the one that you will not sleep. What is that person doing? That can be that person's brand, in quotes. So know your uniqueness. So as you're going into that job, what will help you to stand out? Know it and make sure that you are saying it throughout your interview.
So
Sell yourself.
that's a bit of self-awareness.
Yes, self-awareness and sell yourself. Sell yourself, like really sell yourself, because the company is bringing you in so that you can sell something to them. It's not for you to come and be chatting. There's something they want from you. So that brand is what you really need to know so that you can be able to sell it to them well. So know your brand is one of them. Then prepare your stories using the STAR method. I think we talked about that STAR method. S is situation, T is a task, A is the action you carried, and R is the result. It's a very simple way. A good example is, and usually the STAR method can be anything. So they can ask you, okay, give me a time when you had an issue in your work, or tell me about a time when you were teaching in the class and a student disrupted. So you start with the situation. The situation is, you briefly lay out that scenario using just enough detail that
We can role play, Anna. You can ask me a question. Let's role play so that people really get a picture.
Okay,
because the STAR method is a totally new method for most Nigerians, but we can role play.
Okay. So let's role play this. So tell me a time when you were teaching, or have you taught in a class before? Let's start from there. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually have 10 years of teaching.
Of teaching, right? Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So tell me a time when you were teaching and a student disrupted in your class.
So there was this day when I had, I think it was in one of my chemistry classes. And while teaching, this particular student I noticed had been gathering people around him, and he had something, I guess maybe a video on his phone or something, and other students were gathering around him. And I just tried to calm the situation by asking them to please go back to their seat, and also ask the guy to switch off his phone because it was policy that phones not be on during teaching. And it didn't work out well because he kept the video on. So I would say that for me, it wasn't just that I did the right thing. I think I actually learned a lesson in that situation, because I should have just asked him to leave the class so I don't get the others reacting also negatively. Because what this student did was actually to take off the headset that he had in his ears and actually put the video that he was watching on loud, which sort of disrupted the class for a while. And so I discovered that next time, instead of me dealing with it the way I dealt with it, it's better to avoid such a situation. And so I would say I had more of a lesson learned in that situation than the result I expected.
Yes. So now you see how that's like telling a story. So interviews help you to tell short stories. And this STAR method is a format that you can use to really prepare your stories. So S is your situation. What is that thing? So you briefly lay out that scenario. So just like she laid out the scenario, you can see her laying out all the scenario using just enough detail. You don't have to go into too much detail. just enough detail that the interviewer will understand the stakes and everything else in your answer. So she laid it out. She talked about, okay, this is what happened. This is what the student was doing with the earphone. And then the student was now just talking loud. And then the T is the task. So you talk about your role in that situation. What was your role? You just mention it briefly as well. Then an action, A is action. You also talk about what you did and why you did it. And then R is the result, whereby you tell your interviewer about the outcome and what you learned. So it's telling a story, but you using this format really helps you to be able to, so the interviewer is hearing so many things at the same time. Your role in this thing, the action you carried, and the result. And then they are playing it in their mind that, okay, if we have this kind of situation in our company, this is how she will also do it. So you have to prepare your stories using this method. Look at the job description. If the job description says we want a sales manager, or we want a customer service rep, or we want a teacher, and the person will come in and do A, B, C, D like that, begin to look at each one of those lines and be preparing your stories using this method. And those stories should be very short and simple. They should be something relatable, something that you know that is really happening in the organization. And then think about body language as well, because when you go in for physical interviews, even virtual interviews now, they are watching out for your body language. And this is where the confidence comes in. If you are very nervous, it's going to show. They can tell if you're nervous. So how can you overcome that nervousness? And that's why I did some of that preamble before. You can overcome that by also having the confidence and then exhibiting a lot of this energy. The energy is not hard at all. Just sit up straight, look into their eyes. The worst that can happen is we will not give you the job. That's the worst that can happen. But just tell yourself that, well, I'm doing my best. Have that positive mindset, and it will help your body language to also exude some positivity. Practice, but don't memorize anything, because if you memorize, you go there and be behaving like a zombie, and it will show. They will be able to tell that you are faking some things. So even though you are going to prepare all those your stories, have your mind open for anything, so that anything that comes from anywhere, you still be able to answer it confidently. And have questions. Prepare your own questions for the interviewer. Remember, you are not just going there for them to interview you, you are also going there to interview them as well. You have to ask them a lot of questions, because you want to know the kind of environment you're going into. Is this the right fit for me? Is this the right fit for me? And just like in relationship, like I said, if you are dating someone, you're looking out for the red flags, because you don't want to walk into a marriage and then you find out that the person that you got married to is a very violent person. And then you're thinking of leaving the marriage, or how many marriages will you leave? So you want to start watching out for the red flags from the beginning, and not just be nonchalant about all these things. And that is where your questions, as you're asking them those questions, remember, you're also looking at them too. You're checking their body language, their non-verbal communication. They're also looking out for it.
If somebody is happy, you're also watching your own non-verbal communication too.
Yes, very true. Exactly. You're also watching your own too, because you don't want to exude a sad appearance. And when they're interviewing you, you're also watching them. Are they sad or they're happy? Because if somebody is happy in an organization, you can tell through their expression. When you ask them, oh, tell me, what do you love most about working in this company? If they really love working there, you will see that spark in their eyes. They will start selling the company. In fact, it will be like they will just start singing. But if it's somebody that is just surviving there, you will see it. So watch out for those non-verbal communication, and also your own communication as well. Watch out for what you are exuding. What are you portraying to them? Watch out for it. Then prepare for technical interviews or skill sets. So depending on the kind of role you're applying for, some organizations, especially in Nigeria, I know there will be some written exams for some interviews, which may be the first or even the last stage, depending on how they do their interview. So prepare for that as well, and then have your reference list. So when you have an interview scheduled, these are some of the things that you can do that will really help you. I'll just pause here if you have anything to like, just to hear your thoughts.
Come on, everybody.
When you say a reference list, what do you mean?
Professional reference, like some organizations ask for professional reference so they can call them up to know if you really worked in that organization or how your character is or something. So most organizations ask for it.
Oh, okay.
It's just like somebody to vouch for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they may ask for maybe 2 people from a company and 1 person from your school, or depending on the organization. Different organizations ask for different things. Some may say 2 professional reference, 1 non-professional. Some may say 3 professional reference, but just have some names down, and it can be your managers, it can be colleagues that you've worked with, or even in school, that that you guys have done a project together or something that can speak for you, that you have a good character.
Now, with reference to that, I want to say for most of us in the diaspora, when you come and you're fresh, you might make the mistake of giving references to people back home in Nigeria. I would suggest you don't do that, because hardly will a company in another country call a referee in another country.
It's true.
So it's better for you to look for a character reference. So there's what you call professional reference and you call character reference. A character reference is somebody that can vouch for your behavior so that the company can be able to gauge what you would do in a situation based on what you have done in a previous situation. So I remember what I did when I came to Australia is the church I started going to, that's where I got my references from. So clear, they would call them and ask, how long have you known Elizabeth? And I've already informed them that, look, because you should always tell a reference that you put them on the reference list. Don't be in a situation where you didn't. So when they say prepare a reference, it's not just getting those names. It's actually informing these people what you want them to say when they are called.
Right.
So I asked them to say, I actually haven't been in the country for long, so they can't vouch for my professional ability, but they can vouch for my character because they have known me for this period of time. And then I've also done that character reference for so many people. In fact, after I did that and it worked for me, it was like an eye opener that, look, you don't actually have to have domestic experience before offering that reference list. And also avoid putting your reference list on the resume first.
Exactly. Don't put it.
Yeah,
yes,
let them ask you, let it get to that level first where they are taking you to, because then if it's after you've made the first stage of your interview that they now ask for reference. So like here in Australia, if they now ask you for reference, it means you have moved up the ladder.
Yes.
So
they're about to give you the job.
Yeah, so if you are to move to the next ladder or the next stage, it's like, okay, they interview and they pick 3 people, and now it's like, which one had the best reference? So if they call you and they say, can we have your references? And another thing is, if it's on the system and they insist, because there are some places where they will insist that you must put the reference or you can't move to the next step of applying. Indicate that you would need them to tell you that they are going to call those references before they do, because there's usually a place where they say, if you have any other thing to add, something you want us to know, always make sure that you indicate that. Could they let you know first before they call the reference, so you are aware of if you have moved up the ladder?
Right. And then another thing is, if you've never worked in that country, but you have a resume, you went to school in that place, your professors can also vouch for you, especially if you worked with them. And networking is very, very important, especially as adults. Professional all these professional societies or associations, you meet people there. Some of them can also give reference for you. You can reach out to even your colleagues, people you meet in school that you guys have interacted with before. They can give reference for you as well. So they can vouch for you and say, okay, I know this person. We used to work together. We used to be in the same class. And yes, throughout our 2 years or 1 year of schooling, this is
What's that?
so that's how to come about that. So let me move on. So before your
Sorry, please, I have a
interview, so
question.
now, yes.
I have a question, please. Sorry. This topic is very timely for me. I'm getting ready for a Zoom interview. Now,
Okay.
I'm not in that country. So if they ask for references, I can only give them references from here.
Do they know that you're not in that country?
Yes, they know.
Yes, then that's fine. If they know you're not there and where you are currently located, yes, you can give them reference from where you're currently located. It's
Okay.
fine. Yes, because they know you are not there, you are not presently living there. So you can't have reference for like you cannot live in Nigeria and be interviewing in the UK and they'll expect you to bring people that live in the UK because they know you are faking it. So if they know where you live and they are aware of that, yes, that's fine. So what they can do is they may not call them, they may send them email, or they may even call them. But the fact that they are aware that you're not in that place, it's
Yeah,
it's
but
fine.
on the other hand, also, if in case you have somebody in that country, it will also be good. So
okay.
Just to know that yes, you have someone here nearby where they can also call is good. So that person should be a character reference, not a professional reference, because just like Annette said,
professional too. If it's maybe like
yeah, it's also anything is possible these days. Actually, you could have worked with a professor or somebody who now lives in the UK anyway. So yes,
exactly.
if you do have that option, to be honest, they would
Use
prefer someone that it's local than someone that is in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much.
You will state it there where both of you like how the relationship was, like where you were, whether it just is your professor in school or something, and then you let the person know that you put their name. So when they call the person will know what to be saying.
Oh, thank you.
So before your interview, and congratulations for your interview anyway, Dr. Veronica.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you research the organization.
Okay.
Know everything about the organization. What's their mission statement and values? Go to their product or service page. What kind of products do they do? Do they develop for people? What kind of service do they give? What are customers saying about them and testimonials? All these things can just be one.
So in essence, what Anna is doing is know their brand.
Okay.
Yes, know everything.
So if they ask you a question about them, you are boasting for them on their behalf.
Exactly. Like sometimes you may go for interview and they may ask you, have you heard about us before? When you tell them that, oh yes, I heard about you before. In fact, I even use your products. And your product is so good, your customers, this is what they are saying. Already you are scoring for them because they like it when people go the extra mile to go and research the organization, because you don't want to just go there. You don't even know the organization you are going to be working. And the truth is, these people, the way they see it is, if you have gone an extra mile to research the organization and you still show up for the interview, then you really want the job. That means you are desperate, but not.
And that's another thing, Anne. You see, most of the times when we're going for an interview, we assume that we are begging for a job. But
yes,
if recruitment is such a very tedious process, like for me now, if I interview 5 people, I want to make sure I pick that candidate that would not say yes and then eventually turn me down.
Exactly. So that's why they don't want to waste all their time interview someone and then the person come and accept it and then turn you down and you go back all over again. So when you research the organization and you go there and you have enough things to say about them, they know that yes, you're serious and they will take you serious. So it's a good thing to research the organization, know everything about the company. You can even write it down. I go to interviews with paper and pen, and I will even show them, oh, sorry, I have a paper and a pen. I love to take notes. And that paper and pen, I can write down everything about the organization, maybe one line or something, and it's in front of me, especially for virtual interviews. Even if you are going face to face, you can you can still carry your paper and pen. Nobody says you cannot go to interview without paper and pen. So write it down, because these are not things you want to cram. So you just do like one sentence or bullet points of what they do, what customers are saying about them. And then you say, yes, I've heard so much about your company. Customers really love your product, and I'm looking forward to coming to join you guys so that we can continue to create better products in more innovative things that will be wowing our customers. And you can even say one or two things that you've heard that customers have said, that's because you read it online. And then research the job description as well. Don't just apply for a job and forget about it. Before you go for your interview, go through your job description. And that's part of this slide that says prepare your stories using the STAR method. So you go through the job description and prepare your stories. And prepare that, okay, if they ask me something around this, have I experienced anything around this? How can I come up with a STAR story using the STAR format?
Anna, can I give a practical example?
Yes.
So for example, I'm applying for a customer service attendant, and in the job description, it is written there that I am someone who communicates well with customers. So I would ask myself a question, I'm asking myself back, what do you do in a situation where, have you been in a situation where a customer was not satisfied with the services offered? What did you do? And then by myself, I would try to answer that question. So questions will always come from your job description. That's why it's very important that you know the job description. They can't ask you questions outside the job description.
Yes, it comes from there because they want to know, are you the right candidate? So they craft the story around that job description, and then they ask you. So also research your interviewers. Most interviewers are on LinkedIn. If they are not on LinkedIn, then that's just unfortunate because there's no how you can know about them. But a good place to search is on LinkedIn. Just go on LinkedIn. This has helped me before. I got a job. I went on LinkedIn and I saw that the guy, his background was electrical engineering. And mine is chemical engineering. Though all of us are not doing what we studied in school. But when I went for the interview, he was talking, and then I made sure that I mentioned that I used to be a chemical engineer. And then he was like, oh, really? I used to be an electrical engineer. So I say, yeah, that's good. We have something in common because I already read about the guy. So I know that if I mention that engineering part of me, it will bring up something in him that will make two of us to start connecting during the interview, because you want that connection between your interviewer. So when you research them, look for something that they like. Some of them from their bios on LinkedIn, like about me on LinkedIn, write it down. So when you are talking during your interview, try and be putting some of those things inside. If they say they like trust, they like people that they can work with, that collaborate well, that they, be saying those things that well, so that it will be like, oh, this person is just like me. That means we can work together perfectly.
And
so
Anna, you talked about connection. See, connection is so important. And this is another thing I would say, this is the difference between my life in Nigeria and my life here. When you go for interviews, you are out to show off, you're out to perform. Exactly. But I discovered that that's not the attitude. The attitude should be one of actually connecting. So connecting means you are natural, you're transparent, you have presence. So you are there. You are not just ahead wondering, oh, will I make this interview? Because you can be talking and just talking out of the fear that, will I make this interview? But you should be able to calm down and in the moment, connect with your interviewer so you are comfortable. You are actually just out to make friends. Like when you meet people for the first time and you want to sort of leave that impression that, oh, I would like to be friends. Because that's actually what you're going to do in that interview. You're actually saying, I want you people to employ me. So very importantly, make sure that you give answers that are connecting you to the interviewers.
True. And then you can only get that from researching them, knowing more about them, because probably they'll just give you their name and you don't know anything about them. So you want to research and know more about them so that you guys can have that connection. and find out what kind of interview you are in for and prepare accordingly. If it's in-person interview, there are some things you cannot wear. If it's virtual, there are some, your computer, you have to make sure everything is set properly, because there are some people you will use WebEx. Is your computer such that if you click on the link, it will open for you, or you have to download software, or all those stuff? Find out and start preparing ahead of time. So you don't want to wait till 10 minutes to that interview and then you find out that your video, your video camera is not coming on. Sorry, your laptop camera is not coming on, and that will already start making you very nervous and uncomfortable. So find out what kind of interview you are going for and then prepare. And a night before your interview, these are some things that I just put together. Read through all your notes. Remember, you'd have made some notes from all this research that you have made. And just like I said, there's nothing wrong with you making those notes and taking them with you to the interview. You can take it with you, but don't go there with the mind that you want to be reading from it, because they will know. Just take it with you so that when you glance at it, you remember what you already have practice, or it's just to help you to remember and then help you not to be so nervous. Read through your notes. Your resume is very, very important. Your CV, please go through it very well, because questions come from there. And the worst thing that can happen to you is when they ask you a question from your resume and you yourself don't even know your resume. That is a big problem. They will just know that this person is not a serious person. So please go through your resume. If you are the type that do cover letter, read through it. Then the job description, we already talked about that. Read through all of them. The job description, you don't have to, you can maybe do like some bullet points of some of the things they want if you want to, but it's not really important because you don't want to go in there and be so nervous. So just read through some of these things, form your stories, know the interview location and how much travel time you will need, prepare ahead so that if it's going to be something that there'll be traffic on your way, you don't want to go and stay in traffic when your interview have started. Especially for those that live in Lagos, prepare ahead. Have a folder containing all these things, copies of your resume, your professional reference, and then a pen and notepad. Pen and notepad helps me to reduce my nervousness, because as you're talking, as they're telling me some things, I'm taking note of it. And I go back to what they have said and try to also weave my stories around what they have said. Because if they say they want a sales rep that will come and cover a risky zone, maybe in the north or something, I've taken note of that because I didn't know all that one from the job description. The hiring manager would have told me, well, we want you to be traveling 4 to 5 states to go and do market this our product. I've taken note of it. As I'm saying my answers, I'm also saying answers to what they want to hear. Okay, so you don't want to just go in there without a pen and paper. It really helps you. Then make sure to dress appropriately. If it's an in-person interview, examine your clothes for stains and wrinkles and make sure that your shoes are clean. No stains on your shoes. Pick neutral colors. And as much as possible, please, for those, I know this one is not here, but perfumes, some people react to perfumes. Try not to use perfumes. You can just use a deodorant because you don't also want to go there and be smelling of sweat and stuff. But you also don't want to go and use a very strong perfume that will throw people off. So keep it light. And then at the same time, your colors, don't use bright colors because it can come off, it can be offensive to some people. So pick something neutral. Keep everything about you neutral. No big jewelries, no big earrings, all those stuff. Just keep them to as minimum as possible because you don't want to come off as, flashy. Even let the flashy come more from your conversation than your looks. You want to look really professional when you're going for interviews. And make sure that you get a good night's rest to ensure that you're at your best on the day of your interview. Because if you don't rest well, you'll be very, very restless. And then you'll also be very nervous. You'll be tired. You may not even think well. Your brain may even be tired. Yeah, you know. So let's talk about during your interview because of our time. Listen carefully to the interviewer, and that is why you need your paper and your pen. A lot of interviews, when you go in the first time, the first few minutes, your interviewer will also want to tell you about them, about the company, the team, or the job that you're coming to do. That's usually like the first thing. They introduce themselves. As they are introducing themselves, even though you've done some research, there are still some things that they will tell you that you do not know. Because just like I said, a big company, if you're going to work for a big company, you may have multiple managers. The hiring manager is the one that is coming to tell you about their own area. Their area is different from all other things that you've read online. So you will be hearing some new things from the interviewer. So you have to listen carefully, take notes if you can, and make use of those notes. Make sure that you answer the question the interviewer is asking. If they are asking you things that you do not know, you can actually answer them in a very intelligent way. Some people will say, well, I don't know how to do this, but I'm a fast learner. And then they stop. No, don't say that. Use the STAR method. When I joined company XYZ, when I was interviewing, they also asked me if I can use this tool. And I told them, no, I don't know how to use it. I'm a fast learner. I joined them as a sales rep. And guess what? When I joined them, immediately I started reaching out to people that I realized that they are very good in this skill. I started shadowing them, and they were mentoring me. And within 1 month, I picked up really fast, and I started using the tool. And within throughout my stay in the organization, that was the only tool I was using. I just used the STAR method to answer a question about something I don't know. So now the person will see that, oh, wow, this person is actually a fast learner. This person is very proactive. This person is the kind of person we want. Remember that the interviewer is not expecting you to know everything, but the way you answer your question is what they are watching for. Are you a proactive person? Are you a fast learner? Or you are just somebody that is just coming to be told what to do? They don't want that kind of person. They want you to be the one leading some of these things. So that's how to answer some of those kind of questions if you don't know what to say. Because to be honest with all of you, a lot of jobs that we have, that I've even made to that I've gone into, it's not everything that I know before going in there. They will still teach you so many things. Some companies will even train you from scratch of what they want you to do. Some may not, but a lot of times they will. So they just want to see if you're someone that is receptive and somebody that is open to learn new things. Relate your skills, accomplishments, and objectives to the need of the company. So as you're listening carefully to this interviewer, you're taking notes, answer questions with the skills you have. This is where you know your brand comes in. So when you know yourself, you know your brand, you begin to relate all these things to all they have said. So it's coming across to them like, yes, this is what we want. This is what we want, because you listen and you are selling yourself there. Focus on the positive aspect of your experience. Make sure that as you keep talking, everything that you are talking about is on the positive. If they ask you, why are you leaving this organization? Please don't go and be saying because the environment is toxic, my manager is wicked. Those kind of conversation will put you into more trouble, because they will tell themselves that, okay, is this what she's going to say about us too when she leaves here? So always focus on the positive aspects. Even if they ask you, tell me one negative thing or the one bad thing that has ever happened to you, or what's your weak point, all those kind of negative words, there's a way you can also turn it around and answer it in a very positive way. But try as much as possible not to dwell too much on the negative. Observe the interviewers to get a sense of the company's culture. And this is something I kind of said a lot before. As they're interviewing you, you are also interviewing them. You are watching out for nonverbal communication. You are gauging, is this also a right fit for me? If as a mother of 3, I have to be traveling all over the place every week, is this something that is sustainable for me? Some of these, they may not even put it on the job description. And then as they're telling you there, they'll be like, oh, this requires 60% traveling, 70% traveling. then you're taking note, okay, is this something I can do? You know, so you are also observing, so you have to know all these things. Your posture should convey confidence. Make sure you're very confident. Sit up straight, even if it's virtual, sit up straight. Make sure the lighting around your room everywhere is bright. Let them see your face, that you are very confident about everything, and you're very comfortable as well. Maintain eye contact with your interviewers or others in the room. That's if it's in person. And let your language be clear and direct. Avoid the use of filter words such as that thing turns some people off. Or like between phrases or sentences, that's you'll be saying like it exudes lack of confidence and as if you're not sure of yourself. Okay. So it exudes lack of confidence. So you don't want to be doing that. So that's where you practice comes in. You can stay in front of your mirror and practice some of these things, or you can call somebody to practice before you go into an interview, because you want to be talking straight. You don't want to be using, it's okay to use once in a while, but don't make it.
But I think that is reduced when you use star, to be honest.
That's
because
true.
you're just telling a story.
Exactly. And it helps, star format helps you to be more direct. And yes, just like, yes, you're telling a story and you really know what you're doing. You're not thinking, because come when you're confused, right? When you're trying to form something. So try to practice, and also try as much as possible to reduce it. You cannot go through the interview and say you will not use at least once or twice. Nobody will kill you for that. But if all your statement is full of that, then that exudes a lot of lack of confidence. Do not ramble. Now, there's something about interviews. I've gotten a job offer before because I answered my question straight. And the man was really impressed. He said out of all the people he interviewed, they were just going round and round. And me, I just see, the thing is, just use the STAR method, answer it straight and keep quiet. If you keep talking, it switches some people off. And some people talk a lot when they are very nervous. So try as much as possible, use that STAR format. And when you've hit the action, the result, pause and watch them. When you finish making your point, just stop. Remember that silence is acceptable. If everybody is quiet, it's fine. It's just that when the silence becomes too long, then that's a problem though. But it's fine for you to just finish talking and then stop and gauge them to see how they are doing, okay? So these are some frequently asked questions that I just put together because I'll share these slides with all of you. Tell me about yourself is a very common question. Talk about your successes. Remember, you talk about only your successes, your strengths, and why you. This is where your brand comes in. An example is that I've been in marketing for over 5 years. I specialize in digital marketing, and last year I grew the brand awareness by X%. Use data. They love it when people use data in this conversation. I joined this company and customer satisfaction rose from 5% to 60%. The next thing they may ask you is, how did you do it? So remember to have a story too, please. My strength is my ability to analyze data and identify trends ahead of time. I know you're looking for someone to grow your brand awareness, and I can utilize my skill and expertise to add value quickly to this role. So you see that it's very short, but this example is around what the person has achieved. Tell me about yourself is not, oh, I'm married, I have 2 children. I live in XYZ, or I have this kind of career, or no. You want to only focus on what you have achieved and your strength, and you say it in line with the job description. And that's why reading the job description is also very important, and knowing your brand is also very important. So this is where you sell yourself. And there's a research that within the first few minutes of an interview, the interviewer have already made up their mind. So, and the first few minutes of the interview is tell me about yourself, most of them ask. So the way you talk about yourself gives them that confidence that you are the right person they want. And what you also say is very important. Why are you a good fit for this role? Focus on the skills required. That is why you need to look at the job description and look at how you can contribute. If they want somebody to come and be teaching with this kind of experience, with this kind of grade, you know, and you have all those things, sell it. Sell it so much. My degree and project in whatever has allowed me to gain a deep understanding of this industry. And my practical experience working as a volunteer for this company helped me to learn this, which has prepared me to pick up things quickly and deliver. So you're saying things that they want to hear, things that are in the job description. Can you work under pressure? Don't say yes or no. Explain how you will deal with the situation. You can use the STAR method to even answer this question. Because there are some questions like this one, there's no right or wrong, but they just want to know what kind of person are you? Okay, so I just put these two examples. I'm not naturally efficient under pressure, but I have learned to manage work under pressure by planning and asking for help from team members. So this tells the person listening to this that, well, this person cannot work under pressure, but this person is also very proactive in being able to manage their weakness. Well, it can't even really be a weakness. But again, remember that some companies are very unpredictable. Everything may be going well, and then all of a sudden there may be a lot of pressure. So if that happens, will you suddenly collapse? You know, so what will you do in that kind of situation? That is what they are trying to know. And if you enjoy working under pressure, I have always been someone who thrives under pressure. I like to keep things interesting. So working under pressure forces me to think quickly. So when you finish saying this, you can now narrate how you did it in the past, or how you did it in an organization before, or even if you've never worked before, you can narrate where this applied. And remember, even being in a house with people too, or in church, all these as examples that you can actually put in. But you don't have to even say exactly where. You can't say, even if you want to say it's church, is fine. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to call the name of the place. You can just say, I've had a situation before whereby.
Or you just use it. Usually what I do is I say in my current role, or in the role I just vacated from,
or in the past.
You understand, yeah.
So you now with that story, and this can even be a story or a situation where you were pregnant, you were in school, you were doing multiple jobs. That is working under pressure already, and you were able to thrive. How did you cope? What were the things you did? But you don't have to paint all those scenarios of, sometimes some of these star stories, star format stories can be personal, as in there can be things that happen to you as a person, because a lot of things we do as a person, these are skills that we underrate, that we can actually sell, but you don't have to make it look like it's your person. So that's where you just form that story around some things, like give it the word they want to hear, like planning, asking for help from team members. Your children can be the team members, your husband can be the team members, but you don't have to call that out. And that's the truth, because they are really true members. And planning can also be sitting down and telling them, well, your role in this house now is to wash plates. Your role is to sweep. Your role is to do this, because as you can see, I'm pregnant and I'm in school and I'm working and I can't do all these things. So all of us have to all have a responsibility in this house. And when everybody is doing their job, it takes all the pressure off mommy. That's it. But you don't have to make it you don't have to make it look as if it's your personal story. You can say, well, in the past, when I was, when I had this situation and I was under a lot of pressure, this is how I handled it. And then you say it, and this is the result. At the end of the day, I was able to complete all my tasks without being under so much pressure. I reduced the pressure as it was coming because I managed it very well. And I also asked for help. So the person interviewing you will now be hearing a lot of positive things, that this person is proactive. This person is a good team player. This person is not someone, this person is a honest person. And they like it when people are honest, people are humble, because when you ask for help, that's being honest, that's being humble. this person is, you know, so there are so many virtues that you're already calling out just from this one story that you just gave. You know, so I'm just saying this for people that probably have never worked before and don't have like a work experience. You can even say this about your school, but you don't have to really call it out per se. Okay. So where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? This is also another common question. Show how you will add value in the short, mid, and long term. So these are some examples that I put. Like for short term, you can talk about how you're passionate about this industry and you want to continue expanding your knowledge. And right now you have a good knowledge of you begin to call some of the skills that you saw in the job description. And then the midterm is that in addition to mastering these skills, I would like to also learn, and then you begin to also talk about some things that you feel like you will need in the future that will help you to grow. Maybe right now you are level 1, and there are some skills you need that will take you to level 2, level 3. Say those things. Interviewers like to hear things like that. And then long term, I'm excited how fast this industry is growing. So I will continue to upskill myself and add value in this role. So just for our time, I'll go through this quickly. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Remember, for your strengths, be humble, don't show off, but pick the strength that is relevant, very relevant to the role. For example, if you're going into sales, relationship building is very important. So you want to talk about strengths, and you also use the STAR format to answer this, but pick something that is very relevant and always back it up with using that STAR format, have a story around it. Then for your weakness, remember that self-awareness is very key. Don't select weakness that would disqualify you from a job. For example, you have project management, you're applying to become a project manager, you know that a project manager is a good time manager. And then you come there and you say, well, my weakness is I'm not a good time manager. You've already disqualified yourself. Yes, exactly. So don't use a weakness. If you're a project manager.
I think one weakness I use a lot is that of
being proactive, to being a workaholic.
Yeah, or you call poor family work-life balance. But then after you state a weakness, you must also state how you are deciding to overcome it. So you're not saying I have this weakness and I will always have this weakness. You're saying that is my weakness, but I have started working on it by doing this.
Yes.
Which is where you are also answering the question with the STAR technique and saying that, yes, the result is not good, but then I have learned my lesson and this is what I have decided I'll be doing.
Yes. So this example says, I get excited in the ideation sections and I offer to do too much help, which sometimes impacts my work, but I'm now being more mindful how much I offer to help without impacting my work. So you use the STAR format, just like she said, and answer this in a very good way. So even though being poor work-life balance is a very good example that you can give for this weakness. If you use this one, no matter the job you're applying for, they will not disqualify you, because every job is actually looking for people that will come and be just working for them. But again, it's the truth. Like if you tell them that you're a workaholic, they won't disqualify you from the job, because they want you to come and do 20 hours and then they'll pay you for 8 hours. That's what they want to hear. But so also, like, you have to show how you're working to improve it. Like, oh yes, I used to be a workaholic. In fact, I miss all my children's games. I don't have time for my family because I'm so consumed with work. But I realized that it's not so good. So now I try as much as possible to have a cutoff time for work. I've reduced it from working 10 hours to 8 hours now, and I've been doing really great with that. So just craft a story around it, but don't say something that will disqualify you. So now I'll pause here before we go to any questions, before we go to common questions to ask interviewers. Okay, so I just put all this together. Remember, you also have to ask questions you also have to ask your interviewers questions. Ask about 3 to 5 questions.
But I
When
think, Anna, I think people should ask questions, because a lot of people here told me they have interviews coming up. So people should not be shy. Your face is not
let
showing
me stop
anyway.
sharing this screen so that I can hear from you guys. So what are
Please
your questions?
ask questions. You should ask questions, sisters, please. Or is everything rather clear? If you've learned something also, let Anna have that feel of, yeah, this thing she said made sense.
Yeah, I was even going to say that because, like, all the questions I had on my mind as she's going, she's just picking them one by one, one by one, one by one. So most of, if all my questions have been answered already,
Yeah, okay, that
and
makes sense.
I'm really grateful. Thank you very much, Anne.
You're welcome. So any other question?
Especially because most of us will be having interviews with foreign organizations or international organizations. So this is a very good time to have all your questions answered.
Just one more question, right? The interview I have coming up is a role where I have some experience in it. That's the work I did when I was in China, but it's not in my professional line. Do you understand? So it's just similar to what I did before.
So another thing I
that's
want to
kind
tell
of,
you, though, don't go and tell them you just landed in UK. So when we say situation, do you understand? That's why we say you don't need to call a place. This is something I didn't know. And don't tell them that the experience you're sharing is one that you got from school.
Don't tell them the company. Don't go into too much
detail. You can
if
call
not,
it just in a project.
These people, they will use it against you. Like this one I even gave you about children and mother. For instance, somebody is pregnant, she's in school, she has other kids. These are skills that she has, but if you go for interview, the skills will sell for her very well. But if you paint it like, oh, this is the situation I'm in right now, they are not going to take you serious. But the truth is very, very important, because you go into that organization, it's the same thing. It's just that it's painted in a different way. It's now like, it's very different, but it's the same pressure. You are under the same pressure. You also have teammates. If you tell people to help you do some of this work because you are under pressure to reduce the pressure, it's the same thing. Okay. So don't go into too much details. Don't tell them about the organization. As much, if they ask you, if you ask me, which organization, I will tell you. In fact, before I even start answering, I'll tell you some of my answers. I'm going to be keeping the names of the organizations out of my conversation just to protect them. Confidential, for
Exactly.
Confidentiality, yeah.
Exactly. And then another thing, the way all that you did in school, consider them as projects. Projects in the sense that not research projects, they were projects upon which you were the project engineer lead. That's the mentality you are going to go into an interview with. So all you have to say is that in a project where I was the project lead, but you're actually talking about a research project, okay? This is what I did. So don't sell your studentship, sell your professionalship.
Okay.
I remember when I came to Australia first, I was just at uni, and I was just sharing how it's difficult to get a job when you don't have local experience. And one of the church members, this was during like a prayer meeting, I was asking them to pray for me. And one of the church members was like, wow, Betsy, how can you say you don't have local experience? You are in the uni with the professionals in that field. The best of the best are the ones that teach a subject or teach a course. So how can you say you don't have local experience? That changed my mentality all of a sudden. He said, your stakeholders are your classmates. Your stakeholders are your lecturers. Okay. So you can actually be talking about a project and be calling all these people stakeholders. You are not lying. That is the truth. Those are the stakeholders in that place where you were working. And if you didn't perform well, you wouldn't have gotten your certificate. So you have the
Yeah.
experience. Don't go in thinking that, oh, I don't have local experience, I will not have a local. No, they're not expecting you to have local example. And you don't even have to tell them that wasn't in the UK.
True.
Okay.
So as long as your resume have passed and they even called you for the interview, the rest is just go there and be very confident.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just put together some of these questions. So these are some common questions that you can ask interviewers during, what do you believe will be the biggest challenge for someone coming into this role? Although some of this is just for you to also know more about the organization, but some of these questions also, as you're asking them, they're also looking at you in a different way. They're also looking at you that, oh, wow, this person really knows, it's just like when you want to date a guy, right? And you're throwing yourself at the guy like that, the guy will take you for granted. But when the guy know that you know your what, they have this respect for you. So that's the way these common questions is like too, that even though you know you're desperate for this thing, you don't want to go and show it. You also want to let them know that, well, me, I'm priceless. And I can't just walk into anyhow place. So I want to know how you guys are too, so that I can know if you're the right fit for me. So that's the way these questions will, come
And
across.
another good tip is to personalize it. So when you have an interview panel and they've introduced themselves, if possible, put their names on paper. So when it's time for question, you can say, I am addressing this question to you, and you call the
Exactly.
person's
Call
name.
their names.
That
Yes,
thing has
yes, it's very
always worked for
important.
me. And
Yes.
I remember in one of my interview panels, there was a woman there. So I said, look, I'm a woman, so I'm addressing this question to you. And what makes you dress up every day and come to work as a happy staff in this place?
Right. That's
Like
very good.
she was so taken aback, like she wasn't expecting that, but I got that job. So make sure that you get their names as they are introducing themselves. Don't ignore that
Write it
introductory
down.
part and be talking to
Yes, yes.
strangers. Notice each of their names or use acronym to know that, okay, this person is this person is this person is this. So when they now give you opportunity to ask questions, please use somebody's name. What you're trying to teach them is that you take details very seriously.
Yes, yes. And then these questions too, another way you can use this question is when they answer these questions for you, also use it for your benefits. Like if you ask them, what would you like someone to achieve in 30, 60, 90 days? And they tell you, oh, blah, 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 blah. That thing they told you, tell them that, oh, that is awesome. Do you know that is what I just did in my present work? Then begin to sell yourself again with it. So they tell you, and then you begin to market yourself all over. Like let them know that you have done it multiple times in XYZ, or you don't even have to call the organization. Just say in my current role or my past roles, I came into that organization as this person, and this is what I did for them. And then they'll be like, wow. And because they are looking for someone to come in and do this thing for them. And you have already done it before. So use these answers that they are giving you as well to sell yourself, that you can do it, you have done it before. Okay, so if they like, how can you describe a typical day in the life of someone in this role? When they finish telling you, say, this sounds exactly like what I'm currently doing, like then you begin to say again, just make it very conversational. And also make sure that for everything that is coming out of your mouth, you are marketing your brand. Anything they tell you, you are answering them back, marketing your brand, talking about the job description, talking about what exactly they want, your resume. You're not reading from your resume now, but because the interview is such that your resume have gone ahead and they like your resume. For them to call you, your resume has already passed a stage. So now come and defend your resume. That's what the interview really is all about. So this person puts all these things on paper. Is this person really real? That's what they want you to come and do. So you want to really sell yourself very well. And some of these questions will really help you. And then you can also research, because this may not even apply to the job you're trying to get. Look for questions that applies to the job you're trying to get, and then ask them those questions and answer them selling yourself. Okay. So after your interview, remember it does not end after the interview. Consider what you learned about the position and the company. Do you feel that this is a good fit for you if you are offered the job? I put that in red because this ties to why I started that preamble. You go for interview, you're also interviewing them. Is this the right fit for you? Send a thank you note within 24 hours is very, very important. Just thank them. And then in that thank you note, remember to recap all the things you said. Tell them this was really awesome chatting with you or meeting you, all of you today. And then to recap what I told you, I can do this, I can do that. Begin to sell yourself again. And I look forward to hearing from you and being part of your team and adding all these values to your organization. And that's it. If you do not hear from the employer after the hiring timeline they initially indicated, follow up professionally and only once.
I want to share a personal experience. I want to share a personal, but I think almost everybody here knows that experience where I applied for the job I had before this one, but in this organization where I work, and I didn't get the role. Then I found that, okay, I could actually call and ask for feedback. So I called and I asked for feedback. Why didn't I get the role? And I think I remember the guy stuttering, but then he tried to, like, it caught him off balance that I was calling to get feedback. But you know what? After 1 week, they called me and gave me that job.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. So remember to call and email and also inquire about the position. If you don't hear from them, just do that, especially if it's a role that you really want. Just follow up. Then evaluate your performance. There's also something about interviews. Sometimes I go for interviews, not because I want to get a job, but also to evaluate how, my what. And just to that skill, that interview skill, I want to keep it going. Then sometimes I now end up getting one very good offer and I'll now be confused, So evaluate, you can use this. Interview is two ways. If you don't get the job, right, remember that you're failing forward. Failing forward is such that you learn from your failure so it never happens again. So I always even try to record my interviews. And I sit down and play it again. And, did I answer this question well? Is this the right way to answer this thing? Sometimes I go to Google and I even type some of those questions and I read articles. So next time somebody asks me that kind of question, there's no how I'll get it wrong ever again. So remember, an interview is also a time to improve your answers for the next interview. So even if you don't get this one, your next interview should be better than this one you just did. And some people do a lot of interviews before they land their first job. Some don't have to do so much. Me, I fall into the one that did plenty before I landed my first job. But I was learning from every interview. Like I said, my first interview, interview made me so nervous. So I had to start growing out of that nervousness and gaining a lot of confidence and putting energy into my interview. It didn't just happen overnight. I was learning from it. So interview for me now became a learning moment. And now I'm at a place where even if you say you want to interview me, I'm not nervous again. Because I'm seeing it like this is something I'm coming to learn from. I'm learning about your organization and I'm also learning about myself, because sometimes you go to interviews and you find out that, wow, so this is what is happening in the world now. And you've been sitting in one hole since. So you get to learn a lot from interviews, but you get to know that based on the kind of questions you're also asking them. So after a first round of interview, you may be called back for additional rounds of interview, depending on employer's process, so be prepared. Second round usually takes more time and maybe more people, depending on how it is. Second round may just be short, it may not. So just find the way they do their own process. And if you receive a job offer on the spot, which is very uncommon, but not impossible, it's appropriate to tell the employer that you need more time to think about it. Here, if they give you a job offer and you collect it immediately, some companies will begin to see you somehow. They want you to actually tell them, oh, thank you so much for this offer. Let me think about it and get back to you within 24 hours. Because it's just like you are doing shakara. Meanwhile, you're so happy. If you go and say yes immediately, the company will begin to look at you somehow. I don't know, but that's what they tell us when I started interviewing, that when you get an offer, try to not say yes to the offer immediately, but ask them for time to think about it. Then maybe after 2-3 hours, if you are so happy and you can't contain yourself, just email them and say yes. Ask for specific deadlines by which the company needs your answer. So if you're in a job and you have to move to another job, you can ask for 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks minimum is the standard, but you can always ask for time. Okay, so remember, interviews always end in success. It depends everything is in your hands. Preparation, practice, confidence, that energy, and all these things we just said, we have to also cover it up with what? Prayers. Because just like I said, interview is what? Relative. It depends on who you are going to see. So pray that as you're going for that interview, you receive what? Favor. That's the main thing. That even as you are speaking, even if you're not even saying the right things, that you get favor from who you are seeing, because they are just human beings like you. And they may just, oh, I just like this person, and they just give you the job, even without, they may schedule you for 1 hour interview, 15 minutes into it, and the person will be like, yeah, the person for this job, just take it and be going. So please just back everything up with prayers. Okay. So that ends it. So we'll stop here now for questions and also if you have questions or you have anything else you'd like to add or any experience that you feel you want us to help you with.
I'm just going to stop the recording
okay.
now.